Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about an absolutely brilliant book. Probably one of the weirdest, one of the strangest books I've, I've read this year, and this includes The Spear Cuts Through Water. So, yeah, let that sink in. And I'm talking about none other than The Saint of Bright Doors, the debut novel of Vajra Chandrasekera. So what is this book about? The book follows the life of Feta, who is he was trained by his mother to be an assassin, a child assassin with a very particular target. His own father, who is the prophet of one of the more popular and powerful cults in this world, and also a man who's on the cusp of godhood. He was trained over the course of his life, over the course of his childhood, and somewhere along the way he lost his shadow, so he doesn't cast a shadow. And when he becomes old enough, he escapes the backwater where he grew up, and he goes to the city of Luriat, where he lives a very banal life. Because Luriat is a very strange city. There are what's called bright doors, which are like these random portals to a completely different place through which like Lovecraftian horrors can sometimes slip through. It's a world, it's a city that's just absolutely littered with the debris of different religious cults. So like failed high priests, failed prophets, unchosen avatars of gods, these kind of things. There are a dime a dozen in there. So much to the point that Feta himself, along with a number of them, are actually in group therapy. That's how banal it is, and how banal he is in this city. And but of course there's a lot of like just crazy stuff on the foot. Like the group therapy is actually a recruitment ground for a revolution, and this book just really goes off the rails after a while. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What did I think about this book? Honestly, I debated whether I even wanted to make this video because this is a very dense and difficult book to read and to talk about. Like, I get the feeling if I really start talking about it, I could go on for hours. There's just so much to unpack and talk about. To start with, Vajra Chandrasekera is the very first author I've read. Definitely the very first author I've read who I would say is potentially in the same caliber as China Miéville in terms of what he can do with fiction. Like, this book is just a weird book. It's weird, it's dense, it's challenging, and it's unforgiving. What do I mean by that? So first of all, there's the writing style. Like, pretty much any fan of the fantasy genre know that Brandon Sanderson is a proponent of writing like very basic, very accessible stories, keeping things as simple and as straightforward as possible. He essentially dumbs down his books, his writing style, to capture as wide an audience as possible. Vajra Chandrasekera went in completely the opposite direction. This guy has a massive vocabulary. He's very brilliant. He has a deep understanding of a lot of complex topics, and he just leverages all of that in the way he writes and the way he builds his world, presents his story, presents his characters. He doesn't do it in a way that like he's bashing his knowledge over your head with it. It's not like he's showing off or he's trying to like pull off something highbrow. It's simply that he's writing a story using the best tools for the job to describe the situation as perfectly and as succinctly as he wants to. Like, this book, there's so much content in here. In the hands of any other fantasy author, this could easily be a doorstopper, but this is a relatively short book by comparison. Like, he leverages his knowledge and, his concepts and his vocabulary to put together exactly what he needs to do, and as a result, this is a challenging book. Like, I had to engage both my brain cells on this at full throttle. I couldn't really. This is not a book you can consider a light read or something to put on in the background while you do chores or exercise or that kind of thing. No, this book needs your focus. It needs your undivided attention, and it will reward you for it. Because first and foremost, this is a book that is just absolutely littered with just these different concepts and ideas and themes and so much stuff that you could unpack in here. So first of all, like, I need to talk about Feta as a character, because the entire story we see it through his lens, and I felt like his personality actually impacts the way that we experience the events of this novel. And what do I mean by that? So Feta, he grew up very alone. He grew up as a child assassin. He clearly, from the short parts that we saw, I think it's safe to assume he suffered a fair amount of physical and emotional and mental abuse, and as a result of that, he's a very enclosed person. Not a lot draws emotions out of him, like with the exception of his boyfriend, who he has strong feelings for, and with the exception of these bright doors, these portals that he becomes really fascinated by. He views the world with just this deep sense of banality. Like, it's almost nihilistic in the way that he sees everything, and it's interesting because this book, it does a great job of combining the weird and the strange with just this sense of urbanity, is the only way I can describe it. Like, when everything is weird, then nothing can actually be weird. If weird is the status quo, then it's just the status quo. And that's kind of the feeling we get that his personality kind of helps project onto the story, because this is a weird city. Luriat is a weird city. A lot of strange stuff goes on in there. Between, like, the crazy type of people that tend to be there, it's like a nexus point for so much odd stuff that happens. In the hands of any other author, this would be like a weird and wonderful and strange place. But because of Feta's personality, it's just washed with this entire sense of commonplace, of almost negligence. It's just like any other author, this city would be the forefront, would be practically one of the characters in terms of the attention you would get. Not the case in this book. So that's kind of my thoughts on Feta and how he kind of portrays everything, how he kind of influences the way we even view this, and that's one really cool thing I like about this novel. Like, this entire novel, it combines the weird and the strange and the wonderful with just this sense of, I gotta call it nihilism, or nihilism, however you want to pronounce it, because there's so much stuff that happens in here. There's like religious fanaticism, there's scientific, there's scientific acquisitiveness, whatever you want to call it. There's just a lot of stuff that happens in here, and all of it goes hand in hand with just how trite everything is kind of viewed and seen as. For example, there's this one scene where, like, there's a roundup of people who are potentially connected with a revolution, and the entire scene, it's quite violent, it's quite terrible to witness, and it's pretty much treated as just another day in the life. The way it's portrayed and the way it's internalized by Feta. And that kind of describes it. You gotta read it to experience it. It's interesting, to say the least. The other thing I think I really like about this book is just the way the plot kind of progresses. It's a slow burn initially. There's a lot of mystery that that slowly unfolds as we go. And then this book just goes off the rails. It just goes completely off the rails. Like, when we initially started reading and we find out about Feta's backstory, you would assume, okay, this things kind of are going to build in this direction. No, no, they do not. That's all I'll say on that. I think it's weird. It's definitely weird. What else can I talk about this book? The more I think on it, the more I don't think I could really talk about anything more without like getting into spoiler territory, which I avoid like the plague on this channel. This is just a interesting book, a very fascinating book. It's a challenging read. It will reward you, and what I like about it is that I think I have to chalk him, Chandrasekera up with Vajra Chandrasekera up with Simon Jimenez as two authors who are active right now, who are writing just these unique creative stories, and they both operate in different, like they're both unbound by genre limits, like in the same way that Simon Jimenez wrote a science fiction and then a fantasy novel. Vajra Chandrasekera, this is his debut novel. It's a fantasy novel. His next novel, which is coming out very soon, is a sci-fi novel. What I can say is that I just absolutely love how weird and wonderful this book was. His next book sounds like a trip, and I think if you're a fan of China Medieval, if you're a fan of weird fiction, if you're a fan of fantasy that's unafraid to be creative and imaginative and be completely unconstrained and unbound by anything you would think of as like genre fare, this is a book for you. Even if you're if you're a fan of fantasy as a genre and you want to read more of what it has to offer beyond the standard tropes you would typically be familiar with, this is a book to check out. Like, this is definitely more on the weird literary end, and it's a blast. It's a strange ride. It's a roller coaster, and at the same time, it's a very pedestrian read, in the way that it depicts so many things. Absolutely fascinating, absolutely interesting, and it's actually been a little bit of time since I read this book, a few weeks, and the more time that passes, the more I think on it, and just the more that it just kind of grows in my mind. It's one of those books. So yeah, that's my thoughts on The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekera. I keep butchering that name. I'm sorry. I'm too tired. I'm too tired at the moment. But yeah, it's a special debut. I think we can expect great things from this author, and definitely worth checking out. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.